I think I hit all the right buttons. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick DiClemente with show 353. Tonight, we're going to have some guests talking about Pluto, and we're going to be covering, since Pluto has gone into Aquarius for a second time, it's going to come back out and go in for a third and final time later in the year. We're going to cover what does that mean, and I'll be welcoming my guest Stephen Copeland, who's been with us several times before, since he's really a good astrologer and he knows a lot about Pluto. But one thing that caught up with me is I realized there's a lot of things that I do and have done, and I haven't told you about. And I want you to know about some of these things because some of these things may interest you. So I made a little PowerPoint slide. Let me get this ready for you. Okay. Right there. And we'll go to, let's see here. Okay. Here it is. I hope I can get this out of the way. So, in case you don't know, there is a free course out here. I have put together a 10-week free beginner's course. I got tired of doing it after many 32 years of it, and I did it one more time, and I taught 10 weeks in a row on this channel. Beginner course, houses, signs, uh, aspects, uh, fire, earth, elements. Okay, so if you want to take the course is just sitting there on YouTube. It's free. You can take it at your own leisure, your own speed. And what happened is I started the course and I did 1 week after another, and it was 10 weeks. And after week 7, a COVID hit. So I took COVID and interrupted the course for 2 weeks, and then I picked up weeks 8, 9, and 10. So if you want to start the course, it is free. You will go to YouTube, follow my instructions. If you want to start the course, you can go to YouTube and type in Astrology Unplugged episode 154. Okay? Astrology Unplugged episode 154, which is episode number 1 in the beginning course. So then you just follow your nose and follow 1 week after the next until you run into the COVID stuff, then skip over it. Now, also, way back when, I think 2008, I did about 90, was it once a month? Once a week. I did 90 newsletters in a row. This is when I was just beginning, and the newsletters are very much for beginners. And they are located here, and you have to type this statement in lowercase specifically. It cannot be mixed case. And if you want to go to newsletter number 1, you would go to starself.com/newsletter or NL_archive, newsletter 1, newsletter 2, newsletter 20, all the way to newsletter 90, and the .html at the end. So if you were to go to newsletter 30, you would go to starself.com/NL archive/newsletter 30.html. And in case you get bored with some of the beginning stuff, you can skip later because the beginning stuff is near 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the more advanced stuff gets around 90. And that's why when I got to around 90, I felt like I was running out of material for beginning stuff, and that's why I started these regular. That's when Astrology Unplugged became after those. So if you are interested in knowing those 90, they are there. Also, if you go through the regular menu on Star Self, under the word astrology newsletter, you'll find that you can search these newsletters by subject or by keyword. So if you want to search the keyword Uranus, or you want to search the subject relationships, you can search by either one and you'll be given an alphabetical list. And you can go to find and target those particular newsletters. And they have a lot of humor in them. There's a lot of short articles in it. There's an awful lot of articles on specific famous people. I've done a lot of focusing on the famous charts that you might be interested in, such as Einstein and etc. Let's see here. Oh, also, the final thing I wanted to mention is this is not free. I pay about $60 a month just to have Zoom. So if you would like to contribute and help me out, I would appreciate your donations. And you can do that by going to my regular page, starself.com, and there is a link on the far right that says donation, where you can put in any amount that you would like. And I would appreciate that because that helps to pay for the monthly fee. So that's about it, and I can show this later if that will help. Okay. So, yes, Mr. Stephen.
I assume that your book on astrology is part of the course curriculum, true?
Oh, I forgot about the book. Yeah, the book, The Exquisite Zodiac, is on the first page. So if you go to yeah, I should have put that there. If you go to starself.com, there are links to buy the book, The Exquisite Zodiac, to buy the Kindle version, or you can just go directly to Amazon. Either way, they get most of the money. Ain't that the way it goes? So thank you for reminding me of that. And the book is very highly recommended for beginners, intermediate, or advanced, because it is not just beginning stuff. It really tells you about how one sign is the way it is and how it transforms into the next sign and into the next sign and why. And it's the book. Matter of fact, if you take my free course, the free course is based on that book. So it's highly recommended that you get the book if you're going to take the free course, because it helps you go through sign by sign, element by element, house by house, etc. Okay. Thank you, Stephen, for reminding me. Hello, Erica in California. Okay. So tonight's a tough subject, and I'm really glad that Stephen chipped in. He saw the subject coming across on Facebook, and he told me he would be glad to chip in tonight. I'm glad he found out that it does start at 7 from now on. Now, this subject is a difficult subject if you've not been with us in the past. Stephen has been on a long time with me. Stephen and I go back 30 years or so. I met him in his offices near Bethesda, Maryland, and I went to him for a regressive hypnosis. And he took me on a really nice tour through my regression. And he's a very good tour guide. And he doesn't get in your way, but he's really good at assisting you going through it. And then I kind of needled him to start giving it a try to do these things online with people with Zoom. And I think he started to do that, and I'm pretty sure that's been successful. So I'll be giving you links to certain people here tonight. His name is Stephen Poplin, Stephen, Poplin, Poplin. So welcome aboard, Stephen. How are you?
Thanks for all that, Rick. It's nice to be here again. It's been a good long time. And I must admit, also during COVID,
Yeah.
I taught myself how to make videos and edit them and so forth. And now I too now have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's very good. And I've seen some of it. Stephen is really good. Stephen is a very good, straightforward astrologer. He's a really good hypnotist, but he's got a really good social understanding, social history of the planet, of how they correspond with what the planets have done. So you'll get two or three different sides of these planets when you listen to Stephen versus me versus the other Rick. So we got some powerhouse people here, and that's really a nice thing to have on Astrology Unplugged. Okay, so tonight is about this Pluto has just gone back in to Aquarius. It's going to come back out again. It's going to have its final stay at the edges of Capricorn, and that will be September 2nd next year through November 19th. So it's just about 6 weeks. It's going to have its final stay in Capricorn, September 2nd through November 19th. And when a planet of next year, my dear, let's see.
Are you sure that it is next year,
No,
not this
I'm
year?
sorry. You're correct. It is 24. That's
That's
right.
what I thought.
That's why I need you keeping your eye on me. Okay. Now, I got so many things on my mind. We'll get to Stephen here in just a few minutes. Um, when a big planet, as you know, people freak out and they go, "Oh my God, there's 7 planets retrograde right now, or there's 5 planets retrograde." They don't realize that happens all the time, especially 5 of them. And especially the 5 of them, the outer planets, they go forward for about 7 months and they go backward for about 5 months, forward 7 months, backward 5 months. Sometimes a retrograde can go as much as 1 time, 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times, which is really, really rare. But anyhow, as it retrogrades, it picks up certain qualities, and when it resumes going direct, it resumes its qualities. Thusly, now, one of the things I wanted to say about it, when a planet is on its final entrance, no, its final exodus. So this year, on November 19th, will be Pluto's final day in Capricorn. Do not take this lightly. The planets know when they're leaving the stage. Just like Porky Pig says, "That's all, folks." Da, da, da. And he's leaving the stage and the curtain goes by. That's very much the case with the planets. The planets are tricksters. They're smart. They mess with us. They mess with us just enough to make us think they're messing with us, and then they tell us they're not messing with us. So they're really some strange characters. But when a planet leaves its exodus of a 10, 12, 15-year stay in a sign, it can make a very significant event. It can leave you with something to remember it by. So I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to alert you to the fact that it's very likely when Pluto leaves Capricorn, it's going to have a finale statement for you before it picks up its new comfortable seat at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, secondly, one of the worst things that's ever happened to us astrologers is a band called The Fifth Dimension. Do you remember in the 60s, they sang this very pretty song from the musical called Hair, but the lyrics were totally misleading. And it was called Let the Sunshine In. And the lyrics were, when the moon is in the second house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, and then peace will guide the planet, blah, 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 blah. But if you think about it, why didn't they use an astrologer to help them do the lyrics? Because the moon is in the second house for 2 hours every day. Every day. And Jupiter aligns with Mars, depending on how you line it up, every couple of years or every 6 months. And that's not especially anything to do with peace, guiding the planet. So people just took that song and decided it was the age of Aquarius. And beside that, the age of Aquarius has got nothing to do with Pluto being in Aquarius. So we really got to get that song out of our mind, an earworm. Okay? Now, the fact that Pluto has just spent 15 years, 08 to 23, it's just been 15 years, 2008 to 2023, 24, in the sign of Capricorn, has been very distinct, and now it's teetering on its entrance. It's teasing us about entering Aquarius. Couple of things to say about that. Number one, Pluto in Capricorn has been very, very rough. And when I met Liza in 2005, I was writing an article on this subject for one of the local newspapers here, magazines. And I asked her, I thought she'd be a really good addition because of her Aquarian knowledge, etc. Well, it did a lot of untoward things. What did it do? It did an awful lot of things that we predicted in '05 with the government and with the military and with the education and with the food and with the medicine and with the politics and blah, 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 blah. Congress. An awful lot of things came to pass. People's discontent, inner revolution within the country. A lot of things came to pass. As a matter of fact, I've had long talks with Liza recently, and you can challenge me if you like, but I cannot think of many things that it did in Capricorn that was positive. There are a couple of things. Certainly, you might think of showing us all of our corruption is in a way positive. So I think that's one good thing, but it really wasn't positive like it was back when Pluto was in Sag in 95 through '08. That's when we saw the internet growing. That's when we saw our perceptions growing. That's when we saw intermixing of philosophical and religious bases throughout the world, people sharing. A lot of good things happened during that time. But largely, when Pluto went through Capricorn, there were an awful lot of hard things to deal with. And part of, as I told you, part of Pluto going through Capricorn and part of us Capricorns haven't got, Marcia, we haven't got enough to do. Part of Capricorn's job is that when something is torn down, we have to build it back up. We have to come up with something that stands the test of time better. So it's not easy. And our job with Pluto and Capricorn is going to become easier once Pluto gets the hell out of the way. It will become easier somewhat when Pluto puts its stresses into the Aquarian age. Okay. Now, so tonight is about what does it look like for the planet? Remember, Pluto is, don't get confused. Pluto is going into the sign of Aquarius for everybody for 20 years. After that 3 month moving back and forth, September through November of this year, it's going to spend 20 years in Aquarius. Now, one other thing I've noticed, and I want to see if Stephen's noticed this too. A lot of people are getting in dreamland. A lot of people know that in a lot of ways it's very realistic that Aquarius is our answer right now. We need Aquarian energy, which means brotherhood, working together, being idealistic, thinking of the other, working together as a one unit. We need that Aquarian energy. True friendship. I cannot express to you clearly enough how that's the sign of friendship. I don't mean sort of friends, I mean real friendship. You see Aquarian, you haven't seen in 12 years, and they'll pick up on the same sentence they were talking to you 12 years ago. And they'll remember your brother-in-law, and they'll remember your dog's name. So they're marvelous people, and we need an awful lot of that energy. But one of the things I've found, a lot of people, and this is the number one thing probably in astrology, number one, you cannot see what you want to see. If you're going to be any good at all, you got to be neutral. You cannot see what you want to see. When you're reading for somebody, people want you to say what they want you to say. They want you to see what they want to see. You can't do it. You have to be truthful with a lot of principles and see what you do see. So, we can't blame people, but an awful lot of people I've noticed in the past year or two have had knee-jerk reactions, and they somehow think that we're getting out of Capricorn and going into Aquarius is just going to be a bliss pie. Well, it's not going to be. There's going to be a lot of tough things about it. There are going to be, I think, a lot of really good things about it, but it's going to be quite a shift. So you have to set before you enter this subject, you have to set your mind to the comparison, the juxtaposition of what is Capricorn like, what is Aquarius like? Because a lot of ways they're similar. They're both ruled by Saturn. Aquarius is also ruled by Uranus. They do have the common Saturnian qualities. They can be rather serious, as Capricorn can be. They're both signs that care about others. Aquarius is much more free to be themselves, where Capricorn has a very hard time doing so. It's not an easy Capricorn thing for them to be themselves because they're so duty bound and responsible. Those are two words I keep telling you, Marcia. Those are two words all Capricorns have: duty and responsibility. Now, nevertheless, the last three signs are one big deal: the Capricorn, the Aquarius, the Pisces. And they have a lot to do with transcending the individual and becoming thoughtful of the group I'm in, my society, my family, my country, my planet, and beyond the planet. So we have to give some thought tonight for what's really likely to happen. This is what we did in 05 when Pluto was entering Capricorn. 19 years later, sketching out what we think will happen, what's likely to be the energies. So we're not really looking for exactly what will happen, but what we're looking for is what is the archetypal feeling going to be like. And from that feeling, we will get a better clue on what might happen. And then it gets easier to think about what the plus and what the minus is. So I want to start with Stephen because Stephen's really good with this stuff as we welcome Linda Veros. Stephen, why don't you? I know you're really prepped with these things, and I saw what you wrote recently on Facebook. I thought that was very good. Um, what do you see plus and minus about this heavyweight planet Pluto? Not even talking about Eris, just about Pluto going into the heavy mind sign of Aquarius.
And thanks for this opportunity, Rick. And
Thank you for coming.
perhaps everybody already knows a lot about, Pluto and the basic meanings of Pluto. I find it very useful to go to the origins of the discovery of Pluto, which was in 1930. And any energies, themes, movements, political dynamics happening around 1930. So therefore, the late 20s, early 30s, would be something that we could probably understand about what Pluto is about. And the biggest thing in the United States was the prohibition.
And how about the crash?
The crash, right, and that was yet another level,
Right.
In the financial realms,
The
but
depression, yeah.
on the legislation areas, then we had the government backed by a popular movement that wanted to legislate morality.
Yeah, whether you
They
can
said,
drink or not.
alcohol,
That didn't fly too well.
and it did not fly too well. Yeah. And one of the really interesting things I find about that time, when basically anybody who was drinking a beer or having a glass of wine was suddenly a criminal in the United States, when a group of people who, they had probably some good intentions, because there were some alcoholics who were spending, the family's money, and they were, being irresponsible. So that was, the movement behind it. But they quickly found out that, when you try to legislate a certain morality for
Right.
people, they will disobey. And then sprung up, all the speakeasies and people, moonshine, making their own stuff, making their own beer. And they were basically, officially all criminals. But, just a couple of years before, they were just having a glass of wine.
And how about the birth of NASCAR? That came directly from them out trying to run the revenuers. They start souping up their cars so they could outrun the revenuers. You
Oh, that's
hear those
good.
tales if you live in Kentucky and Tennessee. They were outrunning them, boy.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, yeah, making that moonshine, and I remember that movie by with Robert Mitchum.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where some of the dynamics of the myth of Pluto comes to play, because it was, god of the underworld, and basically the underworld came into its own, into its power during the Prohibition. And we had the mafia and those who part of the underworld, which we even can call them today, those who will not follow the rules, who are going to be doing it their own way, and they're not afraid to use force. So all of that was part of this very dangerous time. And as you said, Rick, then, simultaneously on the financial realm, there was this sense of, zippity doo-dah, we're just going to go, 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 and what happened with the Great Depression was that the people in general, and then the systems in general, had a great doubt about the system itself. And I think about this from time to time. You take a look, 1928, 1930, just a short period of time, And you have the farmers out in the field, you have the equipment, you've got the tractors, everything was there. All of the pieces of the economy were there, but people lost faith in the system, and then we had the crash. And so that's an important aspect also about Pluto. You know, the belief system, what you think is going to happen just might happen. And if it's like, looks like a disaster, it might indeed turn into a disaster.
And then you had this guy come along named Hitler.
Oh my goodness, right. Exactly. You know, and talk about the underground and even the idea of a fascist, you know, where again, kind of like Papa knows best, fascist ideas where the capitalist system joins together with the government with this, father figure, Der Führer, and that was the whole idea behind whether that be in Mussolini or Hitler or other, right-wing dictatorships. So that's yet another level of Pluto during that very sensitive time. So we're, spotlight on late 20s, 30s, and we go, oh, now we're understanding a little bit more about probably a pretty dangerous planet. Yeah. And as you mentioned, Rick, it was 2008 that Pluto went into Capricorn. And it was in that very year that some skullduggery was happening, in the stock market, where they were just, shifting their attention towards the dice, and making bets on really, suspect types of programs and options. And of course,
Into
it
Wall
backfired
Street.
on them.
Yeah, Wall Street, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the president at the time, his name shall not be named. Uh,
The orange one we call him.
he set it up so that the government made a bailout to the banks and pretty much wiped out all of the surplus, so that when Obama came and in 2008,
Yeah,
2009, he had zero budget to do what he wanted to do.
So being a Scorpio yourself, I'm interested in asking you this because you're the perfect person. Since 1930, which is when Pluto was discovered, we certainly see the rise of the mafia. We see the crash. What have been the positive and negative signs that you've seen with Pluto itself since we've had almost 100 years of it?
Right. When you get also down into it, and yeah, you're right, as a Scorpio, I probably should defend Pluto. Um, then we have Pluto as the researcher, as the scientist, as the one with the magnifying glass that really will look at issues very closely. The sign of the detective, the researcher, really, clearly and like a marathon runner, with great diligence, just like we're going to figure this out. We're going to do it no matter if they say you can do it or not, or if they give you the permission or not. The Pluto says, well, we're going to go forward anyway. And so that shows its great strength, and so if Pluto's working for you and you're working on the side of positive transformation, then that is really an unstoppable force. But if you're working on the negative side, in a mafia sort of direction which is pretty ruthless, that's pretty dangerous.
Well, that's one thing I do want to interrupt you about right there because it's really important. And I kept telling you the last several weeks, folks, don't be afraid of Pluto. If you're trying, I'm serious. If you're trying to get along with the mother-in-law, to get along with the boss, to get along with the task at hand that you have charged to you, Pluto will help you. It just will. It's amazingly strong, and it's much more altruistic than people give it credit for. However, however, if you're not trying, it knows. And it is not it knows, it knows. And you know, and you get fed up with yourself. That's why people fail during Pluto times, because they can't stand their own failure. They can't face it. But I'm here to really strongly remind you, you don't have to come up lifting weights like Schwarzenegger. You just got to try. You just got to try. And Pluto is really respectful of that. It really seems it brings you people, it brings you money, it brings you support, it brings you books, it brings you kitty cats, it brings you dogs. It brings you all kind of things to help you. Um, and another thing, and I'm sure that Stephen has seen this a lot. How many times have you heard people talk to you? I went out on my deck and I just screamed that I need help. I'm talking about people at the end of the rope. And I got it. I see it all the time. People tell me that story. I don't know where that comes from. I screamed for help. The next day I woke up and there was help. I think there's a direct correlation.
I agree with that, especially when we're talking about the power behind the declaration.
Exactly.
Very,
Exactly.
very similar.
The emotional intensity behind it is the story.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, a great rallying cry. And, that was what was going on, during, again, the Great Depression, when people were really down and out and they were angry, and so from that time, and it was a worldwide issue, there came many different political options, including fascism, capitalism, socialism, communism. I mean, many different styles of government, all of them saying we have to come up with a different system. What is going to work? And then many people, of course, they chose their own flag to wave. And some of them were, if it was very selfish and suspicious, then it was going to be like, I'm going to be watching out for number one or myself, as compared with others who says, no, we need to have a working political system that's going to work for
Oh, we
everyone.
got the wrong hour. Well, you're exactly right. And I think it's really time that we shift and talk about the wonderful things. The nuclear energy that it brought us, the depth psychology that it brought us. I hate to be glib about it, but it brought us the Twilight Zone. We started to think deeper into plots, into mysteries, into how the human intellect works. We definitely became less trusting. It definitely led to the JFK murder. There's no doubt about it, but we became deeper as a psyche, much deeper as a psyche, and thus more capable of uh, putting together the mentality to go to the moon, to do the advanced kind of science that you're seeing. This Pluto in Aquarius, you can make a little side note here, but you better look forward to some massive improvements and gains in medicine and science. We're going to see some awesome things happen. Maybe a cure for cancer. I don't know specifically what it'll be, but you hear all this talk about nanotechnology infusing with the quantum. These things are going to be really highlighted with Pluto going through Aquarius.
You probably have looked, Rick, at the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius, and that was approximately 1777 to
Yeah, well, nothing
1799.
happened. Nothing happened back then of note.
There was a
Uh,
couple of people who were
yeah,
kind of like in ire at the time. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. The
yeah,
American
like
and the French Revolution.
France and England and America.
Right, right. Revolutionary
It
times.
turned everything on its ear.
Yeah, right, right. You
It's
know, the
unbelievable.
Declaration of Independence, the ideals in that particular document, as well as the French document, the Rights of Man.
Right.
I mean, you know, high idealism and to fight for them.
And Aquarius you could replace Aquarius with the word idealism. It's that one-to-one matched. It really is true. It really, you get to know some Aquarians, study them. Don't make your mind up on studying one. Get a bunch of them around, and you'll see how idealistic these people are. They really, um, are to be admired, not just for their friendship and for their tolerance of people, but for their idealism. It's really, really true. Now, one of the things I think you're going to see over the next 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius is you're going to see finally, we are a Cancer country, and Cancer is about as far away from Aquarius as possible, I think. But you're going to start to see new entities coming up from the grassroots of people working together, like this group here does, working together and learning that you just can't do it by yourself. You just can't. And together, what a powerhouse we are.
As you know, the Aquarians' propensity to get together in groups, like-minded groups, study groups, those
Mensa,
things that they can rally around together. And of course, right here, this is a group. This is an Aquarian group right
this
here.
is very much an Aquarian
The
group. Yeah.
focus is upon, astrology, and yet it's a group. Back in the late 1700s, there was the rise of the Rosicrucians,
Yes.
right?
A
And
big deal. Yeah.
yes, yes, and the Masonic lodges,
Right.
when basically a bunch of gentlemen scientists, as it were, got together and they wanted to do experiments. They wanted to find out about this electricity that Benjamin Franklin had played with, and what's going on with that. And so they got together and they had these talks, these discussions, like we're having right now, to compare, these new interesting ideas, the latest in development, because of course that's also the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. All kinds of interesting gadgets being
Exactly.
made and produced, making life that brought us to what we have right now. All kinds of great innovations. So that's very Aquarian, as you know, Rick, where people come together again with a fixed air scientific approach towards things. Let's understand what's going on, the building blocks, the design. And then Pluto comes in and says, now we're going to have some secret societies, away from other
Very
people,
powerful.
and let's do these experiments and check things out for ourselves.
And you have to also understand that we're also in the age, like it or not, we're in the age of Eris at the same time. And she's a 24 cardinal, and she's got 20 more years until she's done. And she's getting involved too. And her theme song sounds a lot like Pluto's theme song. She's really intense about getting things done. She wants to require the best of you, to draw upon and summons your courage from within. So there's an awful lot of pairing up that those two will do. Now, when you think about the negative, when you get Pluto and Eris together. That's a pretty scary thought because they can be pretty wild together. But I do happen to think, and I really am anxious to hear other people's opinions, but I do think that that combination of those two is what's going to give us disclosure of the UFOs. That's a far out statement for me to make. I don't usually make statements like that, but I think they're here. I think they're going to present themselves, and I think they're going to we're going to discover a much bigger universe in our own collective mind. And I think they're going to try to help us because we're doing a good job of rushing to the edge. Other thoughts, people? Linda? Anybody else? Claudia? Yeah,
I,
Linda,
I
go.
just have a question,
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
when we were talking about the, 1770s, and I'm sorry, I'm in and out because I'm monitoring our study hall, so that when
Oh,
there's,
you are.
when there's bad behavior, I have to,
Hey,
Yeah.
you two shut up.
we have to go out there and, but I was wondering, that one of the concerns I have, of course, is this Christoph nationalism that's rising up. And one of the things about the 1770s was that was a more intellectual approach to religion, that said, we're not going to,
Christian Science.
yeah, and we're not going to establish a religion. We're going to be open to a wider circumstance. So maybe I'm hoping that Pluto in Aquarius might mean that, there's a push against the idea that we're going to go backwards 400 years and institute a national religion, because it would just be terrible. So that's when you guys
But
are
you
talking.
can see that the force that's trying to go back is the Cancer Sun. It's the Cancerian part that wants to run in the cave and hide and be, quote, safe. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. People might fight and bitch about it, but it's not going to happen. And Pluto's not going to let it happen. Pluto is a very forward thinking planet. It's very much into evolution. Good point, Linda. Good point.
I want to add to that and say that, one of the reasons why, they were getting together in these secret societies at that time is because, the Catholic Church and some other, very strong institutions were monitoring them. And, they had to be careful and, go about, so that they wouldn't be persecuted. The burning of witches wasn't so long before that. And if we take a look here recently, during, Pluto and Capricorn, we have had yet another wave of the very conservative who wants to legislate morality.
That's right.
So it's a variation
Throw
of
your
that
books
theme.
away, no abortions, all that.
That's right. That's right. And so I feel quite positive in this Aquarian phase in which we're going to break out of that and say, okay, well, that's not working. Let's not like move, march, off towards the rear into into the past. Let's move forward. So, and Rick, you told everybody that I'm a hypnotherapist. And one of our, let's say, forefathers in this particular work was Mesmer, Anton Mesmer. And we get the word mesmerism from him. And he was doing his work in the late 1700s with this belief. And here's where we have like, the Pluto Aquarius kind of belief in which he thought that, it was this energy coming from our fingertips. It was like an electromagnetic sort of thing that was invisible. And that was why hypnosis was working. He didn't, of course, use the word hypnosis. It was mesmerized, and he was able to do all kinds of really amazing things, healings, having emotional expressions, having people having breakthroughs and things like that. He gave all over Europe many different interesting demonstrations. But again, with this idea, and a kind of a fixed sign Aquarius things,
That's
the
turned
energy was
into
coming through his fingers.
that's turned into what we call Reiki masters.
Right, Reiki.
Rick, I'd like to hear from you. Is you and Stephen probably don't know each other. Rick's is quite a good astrologer. He contributes a lot on this show. He's a little bit different than the two of us, but he has a very good broad perception. I'd like to hear your unmuted response, Rick, about Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah, nice to meet you, by the way, Stephen.
You too, Rick.
Pluto and Aquarius, I'm just thinking that everybody's always thinking about the future, and Aquarius is very future minded. And I suspect that now that we're getting here with Pluto entering into Aquarius, I think it's going to change what a lot of people thought about
Right.
what the future was going to be.
Right.
That transformation is going to, I think the first one is like, this isn't what we expected. I think that's going to be one of the first things that we're going to see. Other elements are,
What does that mean, Rick? Pardon me. This is not what we expected. What does that mean?
I think everybody's idea of what they thought was going to be a change, a difference, is going to be so much of a transformation that I think that they didn't. I don't think in transformation people can really understand ahead of time what transformation is going to actually be.
Yeah.
They may think about things they want to transform, but I feel like there's a lot of preconceived notions that are going to be played with.
You mean like George Jetson?
Yeah. I mean, some new folks are thinking about even Uranus going direct and thinking about Aquarius and Uranus as rebellion. But I said, wait, it's also about just awakening.
Well,
You
one
know,
of the things I thought of tonight talking to Liza, and this is really essential. We are a Cancer country
mhm,
with a moon in Aquarius. And one of the things about Cancer, and I've learned this, Cancer is ready, aim, think about all the ramifications, and then sit back down.
right.
Ready, aim, think about what could happen, and
Mhm,
sit back down.
mhm,
I think I got a kick out of Stephen that time. But what Pluto does is ready, aim, and fire.
right.
And then you deal with what did the arrow do. And I think that we have to look at how long this Trump case is going on. 3 years now, talking. There's something going on. Somebody's afraid to do something. Somebody's afraid to move. Other countries are looking at us like, well, what do you gotta have? A signed affidavit? What do you need? Something's going on where our Cancer roots are staying dug into the ground. They're staying dug into mama. They're really afraid to move forward. And that's got to go. That's just got to go, in my humble opinion. Um, Claudia, what are your thoughts on this stuff?
I had so many thoughts. I did think we may even start to not only the idea of us accepting the fact that we're not the only beings in the universe, in the galaxy.
Right.
It's going to be more commonplace. But if you think about Uranus is going to trine Pluto at some point when it goes into Gemini, perhaps we're going to start even, the travel there, like
Right.
we may not know about it till years later, but I don't even think we really know how that trine with Uranus, I think is going to be so big for, there may be different internets. There could be the advances in just learning and education as well as just the quickness.
Well, whoever thought we'd be learning now by all these little Hollywood squares like we got on the screen right now?
I know. No, I
You gotta
know.
did you get your homework? I get text my teacher and find
Yeah.
out.
And I did start to think about this. I think 10 years, 20 years from now, the way we live and what has become what will be normal, I think is going to change. And by that, I mean, it may not just be a husband and wife or a
Right.
single person. I think 5 friends are going to move in together, and they're going to buy land, and they're going to
That's
not
true.
rely on um,
Yeah.
the government. But I also think about this, guys. Astrology may have its time where it might be more, I don't know, accepted.
As
And
Uranus goes into Gemini.
yeah, so I think it's even just, I don't know if it's me or it's because I know what's happening. I feel that there's a quickening of the energy going from, we're not fully out of Capricorn. We still have a couple of months in this year, up ahead. But I think that the energy is going to move quicker, and these changes that we're seeing, that we're going to see, they're not going to take so long. And our kids, the young generation and the little ones, oh, they're going to see a very different when they're in their 20s and 30s.
The thing that interests me is this, and I thought a lot about this today when I was talking to Liza about it. Because Liza and she and I always run into the final frontier, which is what are you going to do with all the people with all the money? And they don't want to give up their money. What are
Mhm.
you going to do with all the greedy people that got all the money? Well, I started to think about that. And it seems stupid, but a flash came to me today that that's not the problem. The problem is they want all the money. That's the problem. They want all of it. I mean, I can certainly see they will give you most of it. Have 51 yachts if you want. Just leave enough for the kids to eat something, have food, shelter, but that's the problem. Where do you address healing that? That they want all the money. They don't want you to have any money. That's severe.
Mhm.
Oh, Miss Liza has I told her we had to work out a system with 2 cameras here so I could just go click. And she's, yeah, you're on, Liza.
Okay, well, you were talking about all the money, and I think we, first of all, need to remember that Pluto is traditionally the ruler of wealth, especially ill-gotten wealth or, uh, money that has like underworld types of things. So that's just an aside. What I was thinking about, was remembering that Pluto was discovered about the same time that quantum theory was being developed.
Right.
And as you had mentioned, the developments in nuclear energy. But at the same time, one of the things that's always fascinated me, and I probably talked about it before, was the fact that
They're asking you to speak up a little.
oh, the fact that one of the things that's always fascinated me was the fact that Wolfgang Pauli, one of the physicists that worked on quantum theory, was very close friend and correspondent of Carl Jung, the guy that has the psychiatrist who really talked about the whole idea of consciousness and synchronicity, and actually became an astrologer and used that in his practice. And they had a correspondence, like I said, and a friendship, which is detailed in some detail in a book called Synchronicity, a book that was written by a guy who is a physicist and a psychotherapist. So I read more about that, and I think that's interesting and has interesting implications for what we're talking about with Pluto going into Aquarius, because all of a sudden I'm seeing, and maybe you, some of you are too, are seeing that there are developments in both astrophysics and psychology show, and there's become a meeting ground over the idea of consciousness between the two fields, and the idea of, what do we want to say? Just that we're seeing that ideas about consciousness and ideas about quantum reality are starting to overlap.
Definitely.
Science and what we consider to be consciousness are,
Like
are
what the Tao of physics started
exactly
50, 40 years ago.
Rudolf Capra, if I'm pronouncing his name right,
Right.
wrote that book, The Tao of Physics. So it's becoming much more prevalent, and I think that that's really a good thing.
And another thing that I just thought of that comes out of this is I think we're going to stop beating a dead horse. I think we're going to stop saying, oh, there's another corrupt institution. Okay, we understand it. Most of them are corrupt. Okay, now let's move on to the ideas behind that. What are the ideas that led to that? What are the ideas that maintained that? What new ideas do we need? And that's very Aquarian. Don't you think so, Stephen?
Definitely, yeah. And thank you for that, those insights, Liza.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Marcia, Linda Veros, anybody be glad to entertain? Just raise your hand and Marcia, we'll point the camera right at you.
Just today, I read a very interesting article about gene therapy, one gene being put in a little boy's ear who has been deaf, and the one gene is allowing him to hear. So this is a real incredible thing that's happening. It's the birth, a real birth of gene therapy.
Plus,
And-
that's very quantum. That's
and
a
very quantum.
holographic in nature.
Yeah, and how is that's going to expand in the next decades is just incredible.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I was very moved by that, and this little boy, they showed his picture and this tube in his ear, and he's like, it was wonderful,
One gene.
one gene. And how they even came up with that, who knows, but
They're going down the quantum field.
mhm,
Mhm.
yes.
It's
Mhm.
not a one.
Pluto really enjoys the not only the research, but that automatically gives one the image of getting out the microscope, looking at things in a very detailed manner. And so oftentimes little things become very big, very, very important. Again, like the Heisenberg theory in quantum mechanics. And I mean, invisible, really tiny, but so powerful, the power of atoms and so forth. And that was, again, back to, that previous Pluto and Aquarius phase with Mesmer, that he didn't really know, but he thought it was like these little electrical sorts of things because, electricity was being studied at the same time. And so it was electromagnetic power, going on. And how interesting that was. But again, from something very, very tiny, huge things can happen and change.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, Linda Veras. Are you unmuted? Are you
I'm
unmuted?
fine. Yeah, I unmuted. I got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I had 3 points, being an Aquarian, I've really been paying deep attention to what, I mean, this is 20 years that Pluto is going to be in Aquarius. And so I've just been looking at how it would impact me personally, but then also with my clients, my reading clients. And so I've really been paying a lot of attention the last several months, and there's some things I've noticed. So one of the things I've noticed is, you know, Rick Sempe, you were mentioning Aquarians living in the future. And, you know, if that's any, we come in with these gifts, but with the sign we choose to come in with, right? We've got the challenges and we have the gifts. And I think living in the future is both for an Aquarian, a challenge and a gift. And the challenge is learning to live in the present moment. And I feel there's some relevance that's going to be playing out for through Aquarius, actually from being more present in the moment, with a, you know, with an eye and a perception toward the future, but actually accepting the future coming into the present and really being, I keep saying present, but really being present with that
Well, I
in
think
some way.
that's good. And not only that, but that'll pave nicely with transition to Pluto in Pisces.
It also speaks a lot of the mindfulness
Mhm.
of the practice of Aquarius being an air sign that is symbolized by a water bearer.
Mhm.
So it's like thinking about the emotions that we watch go by and the emotions that we have. There's something in the idea of mindfulness that lets you think about your emotions.
There's been a lot of loss of faith in current religions. I wonder what will happen to current religions as we go through the next 20 years. And, you know, Pluto and and Aquarius and Eris, all at the same time, is not going to put up with, well, that's what the book says. They're not going to put up with that. They're not
So
going to put up.
I kind of, this, like the other 2 points I wanted to make actually both sort of tie in with that in a way. One is the other thing I've noticed probably over the last year and a half, but it keeps expanding, is the veil between the worlds has really thinned. And the amount of people that are in contact with me who are having their sort of really these aha moments because they're actually communicating, they're open to communicating with their loved ones who have crossed, they're getting messages. And, you know, when I'm reading somebody, instead of getting one person, I'm getting like a whole group of people standing there giving me information. I mean, they're very present all the time. They're right here with us. And, you know, if we choose, if we want, if we're open to them, if we have a heart connection, they're going to be present for us. And so the people are really beginning to accept that in a very big way. That in itself expands a person's view of their religious upbringing. And then the other thing is the younger generations, okay, Generation X, Generation Z, are, because they've been raised with so many of their friendships and their social life on through technology, via technology, they are they're already creating their own collectives, and those collectives are multicultural. They don't see color, race, creed as an element whatsoever, and they're not going to go for all of that anymore. And I see this is why I see so many in their 20s and early 30s delving into what's it mean to be a Wicca? What does it mean to be, you know, let me go try something over here. And I see a lot of personal soul journeying. Even if you just look at people on TikTok or on YouTube, the amount of young people that are guiding other young people, maybe they don't have it all. You know, I'll be listening to them and maybe they don't have it quite right yet, but they're on the track, they're on the path, and thousands of people are listening to them. So I think this is you know, the world is going to be very different also because of those generations once they are in control. And also the mixed race children, okay, That happened on purpose, because how else are you going to, squelch racism if you don't have mixed race people in control of the political system?
I think you're exactly right. And I think what's going to happen because of that is one of the solutions to the cancer stuck in the mud is that's going to start to transition. The definition of the family is going to start to transition. The definition of the core family is going to. The definition of what marriage is, what marriage isn't, is going to change too. Those things, something has to give.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that that's a place that's going to get redefined as long as you can find what cancer needs in those elements, which is love and support and family.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who else? Erica? Teresa? Renate?
I was
Yeah,
just
Erica, go
thinking
ahead.
about, I was just thinking about what environmentalists and animal lovers and planet lovers Aquarians are. So hopefully there'll be more of a focus to kind of expose all of the BS around how things are being protected so that people can clearly see what really does need to be done. Because after all, Pluto does dig up the dirt too. So I see it as digging up the dirt about groups and brotherhoods. I mean, back in the day with, singing the age of Aquarius, we're the love children and all this stuff, flowers in their hair, and along comes somebody like Manson. So we have to watch out for things like this where
Mhm.
people will take advantage of people wanting to be a part of something, and they're something wrong in their mind and they're going to try to take that to the dark side. So I look at Pluto like the roto rooter that's cleaning out all the corrosion in the pipe so that the water and the toxins and everything can flow clearly. So we have to look realistically not only at all the good things that can happen, but watch out for
Oh,
signs of people
Manson
exposing that.
Manson is alive and well. Manson is alive and well.
But thank God he's in jail.
No, that Manson's dead.
Oh, that's right. He died recently.
That
He
Manson
died.
died. Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
What
But,
Manson are you talking about? Is
well,
alive?
I'm not allowed to say his name.
Oh, yeah. That's all they need to do is start putting their sign on their
Oh,
forehead.
please, please. Renate, what are you thinking? Chuck, what are you thinking? Teresa, what are you thinking?
So what I observe here, you see, I'm in Canada and it's a cancer country too. At the moment, everything is coming out in families. I'm in many groups here, Zoom groups, and all the dirt, everything, especially what I found out, cancer don't like to see. They want a harmonic family, and that doesn't work any longer everywhere. And the other thing is that I see couples that the way they are together is already changing.
Yes,
It's not we have to do everything together. Oh my God, yes, and we go there. No, one goes. I visit my children on Christmas, and she said, "Okay, I have a look at my family, and we have a couple here in the house. They are in their 70s. It's amazing how they are so light with each other, and
a new
let
flexibility.
and they let each other so much freedom. What the other want to do is this cancer thing. What I remember, I have been married to a cancer. Terrible. I have to sit every evening on the sofa with my ex-husband and watch TV. He always wanted me beside him, and I wanted to be free, do my stuff. So I see here, my observation is that it began already. The kind of
That's really good.
new, yeah,
That's exciting. It's exciting.
yeah,
Hey,
the kind
Chuck,
of new freedom.
out there in space, Mr. Chuck, what are you seeing in the business world? You are muted.
Forgot about that. I think that all the data says that if things continue down the track that they're on right now, somewhere around 2030, for a period of about 5 years, it's going to come apart. It's all going to fall apart. I mean, all of the short-term patches, all the little political fixes, the days are going to be gone where we're not going to be able to recover from all of those things, and it's going to all fall apart. So I'm kind of, and it'll be an extended period. At least that's what the business and economic outlooks there. I don't know that everybody is seeing that yet, but I'm seeing it, and
Oh,
along
I
with
think
it,
a lot of people see it. So
yeah.
are you saying there's not much hope beyond that?
No, I think there's a lot of hope beyond it, but it's just a matter of, it'll be a period of 5 or 6 really difficult years, probably equal to, if not a little worse than what we went through in 29, which was an interesting parallel when I heard somebody talk about that earlier, kind of as a back reference. When the market crashed, it's going to be similar, only a little more extended, meaning it's going to take 5 or 6 years to kind of work through it. But once we get on the other side of it, predictions kind of suggest that it'll be one of the greatest times of growth and wealth creation. A whole variety of other factors are going to play in it for 50 years.
We're gonna have to resurrect FDR. Teresa, what's on your mind? You've been quiet.
Well, it's interesting to hear what everybody else thinks about it. I kind of feel that whatever has happened, is happening, or will happen is all in the bigger plan. And I have a very positive outlook for this plan. I know that there will be times like maybe Charles is speaking about, or some of the other people that spoke tonight, that will be a little bit rough. There'll be changes, a lot of changes, and maybe very quick changes that will happen in a short period of time. But I believe that it's all in the bigger picture. I try to look at the bigger picture and not just a section, because that kind of helps me stay in the zone of peace. And I think that eventually, I don't know how long it'll take, but I think that human beings will come together. Maybe it'll take the aliens coming down, and making themselves known. But I just think it's all good. Even the stuff that we don't like, there's reason for it all.
We like your attitude. We want to definitely make sure we get some time with Susan, and I want to end up with final thoughts from Stephen. Susan, and your Winnebago, whatever the machine's called, what are you feeling and seeing?
I think if the aliens come down and they're brown, they're in deep trouble. That's what
That's what George Carlin said.
Yeah, that's what I think. I feel like Aquarius has this indifference to it, a quality of, you know what, for whatever is for the greater good, we're not going to be sissies about it. If it takes, a major flood
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I don't think we're done with pandemics yet either.
Oh,
No, we
I
are.
think another one on the heels of this one, I think has increasing likelihood. And the unwillingness of the populace to address problems as a group together cohesively, it doesn't bode well. And I'm not sure how this year's political landscape is going to pan out, but I have real concerns about that one as well. And that could end democracy as we know it. You
that's
know,
really well said, Susan.
250 years is a nice long run. There's never been a
Yeah,
democracy.
and also when you're looking at a Pluto return, let's be honest about it, honest astrologers. When you're seeing a Pluto revolution orbit complete itself, there's a very natural promise there that it's over.
Right.
It's very natural occurrence. That happens a lot with Saturn returns, happens a lot with Neptune returns. It just does.
And far from the age of Aquarius love and understanding and peace, I see fascism, racism, anti Semitism dramatically on the rise, exponentially so.
Well, I think you're right, and that scares me to death. Thank you, Susan. That was really, really good. I would like to save our last 5 minutes for Mr. Poplin to summarize, because I know his mind is big and he travels a lot in Europe. And I don't even want to get into asking you what the Europeans think of us.
You
What's on
know,
your mind?
there's so many levels of Pluto, and we can think about, some of the more positive things about research, breakthroughs, and so forth, going through this Aquarian sign. By the way, one extra thing about Aquarius, many people think, it's so much about the future, but isn't it also about the ancient past? It's more like the extremes of all kinds of time, or extremes of groups and groupings of people. And so people really into archaeology, the ancient Egyptians, the Atlanteans, and so forth. I think that's also rather Aquarian.
Look at what they're digging up in South America. It's everywhere.
Wow, yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about, with the shadow side of Pluto, especially thinking about the USA and the Pluto return, I think that we're also, and have been looking probably for the last maybe 10, 15 years during this Pluto return in the US chart, is a collective national karma.
Yeah.
And when we take a look at what this country has done, built on slavery,
Yeah.
built on annihilating the native populations,
Yeah.
enforced servitude, I mean, all sorts of things in the history of this country, which, by the way, in the last maybe also 10 years, there was, a back push on, well, let's not teach that in school.
Oh, yeah. Let's
Let's
just
not
not
look.
talk about it.
Let's not talk about it, and that's, again, let's be secretive, which is again another Plutonian thing.
It's not going to work.
So I think that a lot of what we've been seeing, including Mr. Orange, is that we're looking at a collective karma. That which we have done to others has been visited upon this nation.
Can we call him Agent Orange?
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are some really good thoughts, everybody. I tell you what, we got a really good group here. You're welcome back anytime, Stephen. And I think you can see this is the time you've been here that this show has opened up more. It's been given more freedom with the Holy Spirit to just do what he wants to do. Where in the old days, it used to be strictly pretty much astrology. But it's really good to see all these really good thinking minds all come together. It's really great to see. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your 2 cents tonight. Very good, Susan. And thank you for yours also, Renate. Everybody, I don't know what to say to you. We got some time left. Keep rubbing your chin, but don't rub it raw. Okay, we want to thank very especially our guest tonight for joining in. It's been a while and glad to have you back. Come back anytime. If you get some ideas, send them up the pipe. But it's been very good to see you. Love everybody and peace with everybody. And go forward with hope.
Have a good
Onward.
week.
Onward.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Rick.
everybody.
Go forward and multiply.
Many blessings, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
We'll be fine.